Hello and welcome to LinkedIn Live with myself, Garth Sharif, back after a few weeks, and I'm glad I could be with you just a couple of days before leap year, which will surprise me when we don't flip over to March 1st on February 29th. But I will wish all those leap year birthdays and babies happy leap year and a birthday that you don't see that often as much as others. Welcome to this LinkedIn Live where we'll discuss what is Sora. Now, you might have heard about Sora in the news because it is capturing a lot of attention because it's coming from OpenAI, the generative AI platform behind ChatGPT, which I've talked about. And it just the next level up to what it can do as a platform. And I wanted to walk through it because it is one amazing and interesting. It has not been released, so you don't have access to it. At least I don't. There's a limited few that have access. What they're doing right now is redlining it, just making sure that when it is released into the public space, that it is not a destructive force, but a cause, maybe a force for interest and intrigue and fascination and play. We talked about explore versus exploit, the explore mentality, but it doesn't blow up the world. And I talked about this before, but when ChatGPT was released in December 2022, it took OpenAI a little bit by surprise in terms of how quickly it gathered attention and use. And they didn't, I mean, it wasn't doing anything that terrible. They had redlined ChatGPT before it released. And redlining is again making sure that they can push the limit to see what somebody could do with this that might be illegal, immoral, whatever it might be, and making sure the coding and safeguards are there to prevent that. But still, the societal impact of ChatGPT, which we're still in the wake of and will be as they continue to version up, uh, took OpenAI by surprise as to what the power of it was once it was released into the environment. So they have become a little bit more modest in how they release versions of their platforms and their software, and they're thinking more and more about what the impact will be because they don't want there to be something unexpected that could happen with releasing these. So Sora is going through probably a slower process to be released into the public space than ChatGPT, which is good. Even though I'm excited to see it, so I'm going to share some things because it is me, and I think a little differently. When I heard that they named it Sora, I said, "Well, that's interesting, Sora. That sounds very much like Vulcan names." And I'm a big Star Trek fan. I keep coming back to it. I don't know why Star Trek has reemerged in my life as a bigger force than I thought it would be when I was a kid. I was huge into this, but you got Spock. This is from Vulture's or Screen Rant's top 10. Sarek, Spock's father. Now this list is egregious to me because it goes to Soval, whereas Savick, Lieutenant Savick, first played by Kirstie Alley in Star Trek 2. Anyway, when I heard the name of OpenAI's model Sora, I thought that sounds very much like a Vulcan name, and I immediately attached myself to it. But that is neither here nor there. Just something for me to share with you. Now, when it comes to understanding what something that is platformed by OpenAI is, there's no better source than OpenAI. Now, obviously, there's a news cycle that will describe different aspects of Sora and what the effects could be, and I'll get into that shortly. But to me, if you ever want to see a sort of an interesting look at the software that's being released by OpenAI, OpenAI is a pretty good source. They have their technical report about how it works, which is for computer scientists and programmers only. So I'm not going to click on this. But what it does do is, I think, as an overview, takes us through the methodology, what it can do, what it can't do. And again, I think there needs to be scrutiny of it outside of OpenAI because there's a bias here. But I think this is a good place to start. So I would go to this because you can't access this Sora yet, but just to understand what it is. So what is it? Well, we are in a text to video model. Now, there are text to video platforms out there. There's one that I use called Pika. And if I actually, maybe I'll show that to you. Pika is another company that has a text to video function, but it's not OpenAI, and it's running off chat running off GPT-4, which is the engine behind ChatGPT, but it's pretty good. But when OpenAI decides to go into something, it's going to be a lot better because they're putting in their resources. So I wanted to show you something that I created via Pika, because Pika was available um, maybe a few months ago, and I did use it to create, and I put this on LinkedIn, little story. And this is the story. So text to video. So I asked it to create a story. Here it is. Porter the porcupine doesn't have many friends because of his needles. He also doesn't know where his family is, as he grew up as an orphan raised by Sammy the squirrel. This is a bedtime story I was telling to my daughter, and I wanted Pika to make an animated film about this, or a little snippet. So this movie is about Porter's journey into excitement and danger to find his family. So this is not Sora. This is Pika. And it was pretty good. It had a few little snippets of what the story could be. Didn't totally impress me, because it didn't provide the entire story. The graphics differed between each sort of vignette that Pika provided. Now, let's go to Sora. Sora, because it's using OpenAI, it's using GPT-4 and their transformer breakthrough and their natural process language breakthrough, which is all OpenAI is still the front runner in the breakthroughs and using their own breakthroughs to develop things, is text to video. Now, they provided samples on OpenAI, and it's wild. Okay, this is wild stuff. Now, no one has in the public space has actually tried this, but this is the prompt for this one. A stylish woman walks down a Tokyo street filmed with warm, glowing neon and animated city signage. And this is what it produced. I'll be honest with you, if you just saw that video, it would be difficult to imagine the entire thing is generative AI. It would be difficult because in context, now that I'm showing it to you here, you're like, oh, I can honestly, this is crazy stuff. I mean, here's another one, and my son loved this one. He showed me it to me. Historical footage of California during the gold rush. That was the only prompt, and Sora produced the rest. It produced this sort of cascading sort of overview of the gold rush in the 1800s, and I believe the 1800s. History buffs may correct me. But amazing, amazing. I mean, it looks very real. And even if it doesn't look as real as you would think, it looks definitely like something an animated studio, a big production animated studio would have. So Sora in this site can generate complex images. This is a camera following a white vintage SUV. And so they have multiple examples of this on their website. I mean, this stuff it blows your mind. So what's interesting about OpenAI when they describe their release of a product, they try to be somewhat um, self-analytical and look inward. So the model has weaknesses. It struggles with accuracy, simulating the physics of complex scenes. It may not understand specific instances, so it might not always sort of work the way it should, right? But it's the thing with generative AI, and we've talked about this before. It will get better. It will get better with this. So this is going to be released at some point. And what does it mean? For certain professionals, this might not be much to think about. I work in the CPA, lawyer, finance space. You might say, well, what does this have to do with me? The ChatGPT feels more relevant with the things I can do and ask and research and analysis that ChatGPT can do. But what about this? Well, again, we think outside the box in terms of ways in which all professionals, in some ways, interact with videos, because video content is a big way in which we talk to each other. I'm doing that right now with the video content here, right? Through marketing, branding. So there are opportunities. Obviously, a particular segment of professionals are more affected, and I'll get into that. And OpenAI also talks about its safety, right? So they have their red teamers working through and making sure that the prompts that are asked and then are fulfilled by Sora meet ethical, moral, legal standards of OpenAI, and they're making sure that it happens. Now, again, when we talk about ethical consequences to this, when we talk about elections and what are called deep fakes, and could you simulate someone else? Could I put a prompt in for a known entity, an actor that is out there that has their face in the big data that is used by OpenAI, which is the internet ultimately? Could I ask it, for example, let's just say a Star Trek episode, have William Shatner sing happy birthday to Garth, right? And that's almost like a Cameo, which is an app to get a famous person to talk to you. Idea. Would there be redlining against that because William Shatner, Captain Kirk, wouldn't have given his permission for this? So they're going to have to, there's a lot of complexity here. They're going to have to work this through. Like, how do they ensure that people's resemblance aren't produced through the prompts? So when this is released, it's going to be highs and lows, I'm sure, with this. But it is wild with what it can do. Now, I'll stop sharing because it goes into further things about how this works. In fact, it works very similar to ChatGPT in the sense that it is producing, based on a prompt, an output using the generative pre-training transformer 4, which is the engine behind ChatGPT. But in this case, the output is not text, it is video. So it is really amazing. Now, the so what to this, I asked the question, why should you care? Because again, some of this might feel like cool beans, but what does it mean to me? To me, this again another level up in generative AI. Now we're talking text to video. We have text to sort of natural process language with ChatGPT. It's just going to continue to move up and further up in terms of leveling. So you might look at this and say, I'm not sure how this works for me in terms of what I do. But to me, this also just shows the progression in generative AI. Now, when we talk about a profession that is immediately impacted by this, the impact is real. We can talk about the artists and actors and producers and writers of the world. So Tyler Perry, filmmaker. This is a recent article from the Hollywood Reporter. He had planned to create his own 800 million studio expansion, but after seeing OpenAI Sora and some of the clips I showed you, they Tyler Perry said to himself, "I'm gonna wait this out because what if I don't need an $800 million studio because Sora is doing a lot of the production work on its own." And again, there's real existential crisis in the creative community as to what this might mean when Sora can potentially produce animation, a cartoon, movies, backgrounds without real input or ideas or artistic generation or animators. And what does that mean when it comes to the future of production of television and film and other visual mediums? And again, I have grave concerns about that. I have a small foothold in the artistic community as someone who used to act, who's on the board of the Fringe Festival, and I think protection of artists and writers and creators, because again, I've talked about what ChatGPT is. It is not creative. We are creative. People are creative. ChatGPT is not creative. It's taking what it understands and producing new content, but it's not creativity in the way human creativity works. And it's challenging because we can potentially start replacing human creativity with this other form. And what does that mean for certain professions? And including, some of the ways in which it intersects with what the finance, accounting professionals do. But I think it's worth to keep an eye out to when it's released. I will always encourage you that are out there, when it's released, hop on it. I think it will. There'll be a few releases, and I think there will be a max out in terms of how many individuals can be on the platform when it's initially released. But I try to get on it quickly because to me it's about playing with these things and just seeing the power of them. And even if you say this has no relevance to me in my professional responsibilities or what I do, I think just the mere act of playing with these softwares just primes you for the world that we're entering, which is in some ways to me a new world. And I tend not to want to exaggerate, but I tend not to want to underscore or undersell how quickly this is moving forward with these generative AI solutions, platforms, softwares, different ways in which we can prompt generative AI software to do things. And this is text to video. So really, I mean, again, I'm blown away from what I've seen from Sora and what I showed you on the website. I encourage you to go to the website. I'll post the Sora link from OpenAI. It's crazy stuff to me. I'm looking at it, and even my son, who I think as a teenager, right now in this world, it's sometimes hard to impress them. Maybe that's just me as his father, but sometimes it's hard to impress him. But when he saw that Gold Rush image, um, plays this game called Red Dead Redemption, and he likes the westerns and that the things that are about westerns and he saw that, he was just amazed, and when he showed it to me, I was like, that's amazing. It really looks like just from a single prompt, and the way it cinematically sort of showed the canvas, and the landscape was just so. Again, my message around this is not to create anxiety or panic. I just feel like all of us that are on LinkedIn, and this platform might gear more to professionals in the business space. And this still might feel a little bit more in another space, but I just think you want to pay slight attention to these, and not completely either dismiss it or say not for me, but be of a playful mindset. And when something, especially from OpenAI, my recommendation, because there's a lot of different softwares and platforms that are working with GPT-4, like Pika, which I jumped onto. I don't pay for that in terms of monthly subscription, but I I just jumped onto it because I like testing these things. But when OpenAI releases something, to me, I would highly recommend you to jump on it, just play around with it, just to see what it is. One, you can impress other people, but two, you're just changing your perspective and framing about the way in which we're going to be working with these tools. And I think that's the biggest thing, because you don't want to feel like this is a massive leap when some of these tools really do become applicable in your professional daily life. You don't want to feel like all of a sudden you were swimming in shallow waters and all of a sudden you're in the deep ocean. You want to kind of wade out there, and playing with these tools is a way to wade out there and just get used to a new environment, in my opinion, that we're going to be in. So, thank you for watching What is Sora? I believe I will have another LinkedIn Live. You can let me know in the comments for this one. This is an idea, might not be very popular, but it's, I mean, because I've seen a few of I've tried to see as many of the films that have been nominated by BAFTA and the Screen Actors Guild and the Academy Awards. Um, and I thought, because the Academy Awards are on March 10th, that I would, go through some of these films, just in anticipation of the Academy Awards. I'm not sure if it's still as big as it was when I was younger, but I thought I'd do that. Maybe I'll integrate some artificial intelligence to that as well, because there are some ways to always talk about that space with what's happening with artificial intelligence and even some of the categories that are there, like music. So, playing with that one, don't hold me to that as the episode, the LinkedIn Live for next week, but that's what I'll be thinking about in the week off that I have. So, thank you for watching. I usually check out the comments at the end. So if you have comments or any questions, and I'll post that Sora link to my feed. But thanks for watching, and until the next time, take care.